On this episode of the Rebel Health Tribe podcast, available at rebelhealthtribe.com, we welcome James Maskell, author and founder of Evolution of Medicine.
I can remember, there was some amazing stories. Like my wife and I, when we first started, we did a 5-month road trip. She wasn't my wife then, she became my wife after, but we did a 5-month road trip. And I was making about $1,500 a month at this point, so we start on this road trip and I'm like, yeah, we're going to go and visit these doctors. How are we going to keep the costs low? So I was like, yeah, we'll just go camping. So we start our trip. I'm in rural Virginia, about to start my first day. And we wake up and it's pissing it down with rain. And I've got to get myself into a suit to go and visit these doctors. And I certainly realized the camping was not going to be our plan. And then we started staying in very low-end motels for a long time. And we almost ran out of money on that first trip. And I won $600 playing roulette in Seneca Falls at a very key moment to keep the whole show on the road. And that was, that was 8 years ago now. And look, the life of an entrepreneur, I really care about this happening. And so, it's been, all the chips have been in all the way along. And it's exciting to see, just how much momentum the whole thing has now.
That's coming up. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Rebel Health Tribe podcast. I am Joe Rignol with Michael Roseline. What's up, Michael?
Yo, man. How's it going?
Going good, man. I'm excited about today's show. We're joined by James Maskell, author and founder of Evolution of Medicine. Hey, James.
Good to be with you guys. Good to be here with the Rebel Tribe.
Great to have you, man. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, James. You are one of our busier guests, so we appreciate you carving out the time to come on the show.
Totally.
For sure.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so James, there might be a few people listening that don't know who you are. There may be a few people listening, period, for all we know. Just put that out there. But for folks who may not know you, just, what do you do and why do you do it?
So obviously, if you listen to the Rebel Health Tribe, or you're part of the tribe, you realize that there's a very different way of creating health than you would see in the mainstream medical system right now. And essentially, what we're trying to do is shift and create a medical system that works for chronic disease. And that's been a journey. It's been 11 years in the making. Of the last 3 years, it's really started to sort of accelerate. And we're in the majority of our work is done with doctors, health professionals of all varieties. And the goal is really to switch doctors to creating a successful practice doing functional medicine. So we're not really consumer focused at this point. We're focused on the doctors, mainly because when you take a step back at the industry and you think, okay, if we wanted to create a new health system that actually worked in keeping people well and actually creating health, what would that look like? And the number one thing we just coming back to is that ultimately the supply of functional medicine doctors is way too low. And so whatever you're going to build in the medium term, we need to have way more of doctors who understand health creation like this. And so that's why, for the last 3 years, our focus has been on just making it easier and easier for doctors to find out about functional medicine. And now our next effort is to really make it easier for them to build a successful practice doing it, not just get it conceptually and not just use it on their family or other people that they care about, but actually how to do this every day for patients.
That makes sense. If they see doctors being more successful with it, more doctors are going to see that and be like, hey, what's he doing? How do I get involved? Plus, you want there to be that financial, as a safe place versus I could go this route, but it's going to destroy my practice. So, James's functional forums are awesome. I've watched about a dozen of them.
Thank you, dude. Yeah, so it started with content. Yeah, we started with making the show. So that, I started going, I was in the space for 7 years and I started going to the conferences and I saw there was quite a big barrier to entry to doctors to find out about functional medicine. I had to go to a conference, pay $1,000. There was only a few conferences a year. And then none of it was being captured for any other time. It was just happened once and then that was it. And this is just 3 years ago, but I'm not talking about 10 years ago. And so, so we started the Functional Forum. It started off as a community in New York. There was a really cool functional medicine community on the west side of LA that I'd been to a couple of their meetings. And I was like, look, there should be in New York. So we started it, got grouped together. And, we decided to try and create a piece of content or, a regular piece of content for doctors that doctors would want to watch. The goal was to get the attention and trust of the community. And so, all the content that's ever been made for doctors is like for CME education. It's very boring and it's just like done the same way for generations. So, it's got video and we have music and it's only an hour and a half and we have like TED style 18-minute keynotes. And then we have live interaction. You can like tweet me a question. I'm the host and ask, that. So for 2.5 years, we've been doing that. We've done 30 episodes now. We're just building this community. After the first, we built it in New York, then we started live streaming it. And now we have 200 communities around the world of doctors getting together to watch the show. And it's been an amazing journey. We did 2 summits, just really trying to get the momentum moving and introduce new doctors to it in the most easy way. And so my favorite conversations are where a doctor comes up to me at a conference and says, hey, I'd never heard of functional medicine. I saw like a little clip of it. Someone posted to me on Facebook. I went to the functional forum. I binge watched all of the episodes. And now like I've taken some action, I've interacted with you guys, your concierge program. And now I've got my path to go and do this, and they're doing it. And, we've had that like one by one, and now maybe like dozen by dozen. And the goal is to really accelerate that. Our goal is to have 100,000 what we call functional micro practices within the next couple of years as a starting point for building a new primary care system that that elucidates a lot of the ideas that you guys have in the Rebel Health Tribe and sort of merge the worlds of wellness, community, and medicine into a new system essentially.
It's great when you hear, doctors coming up to you and with stories like that. Is there resistance to it also? Do you, especially in the beginning when you started this, did you find some regular medicine doctors saying, well, what is functional medicine? I don't know.
Totally resistant. That's the history of resistance. That's what you're talking about. There's a history of resistance. And, it's interesting. There's this guy I talk about in my book. There's this guy called Mark Granovetter. And he has this thing called the threshold model of collective behavior, and he talks about it, and he talks about it in context of a riot, right? If you showed up and a riot was started, would you be the first person to throw a rock, or would 90% of the crowd have to throw a rock before you could ever consider throwing a rock? And it's basically like this peer pressure, right? And everyone has a different threshold. So in the first era of functional medicine, the only doctors that switched were ones that felt a moral responsibility to practice this way because their kid was sick and they couldn't get them well with regular medicine, had to work out a new way and got them well, or they were sick or another family member was sick. And they realized, wow, there is a way of creating health that leads to, long-term good health outcomes that I didn't learn in school. So in the first era, it was just those doctors, and they had no idea how to run this new business because it's a different type of practice. If you're actually having patients participate in their care, you have to run a different business model. In the old model, the doctor was the most important person in the relationship, whereas in the new model, the patient is the most important patient in the relationship because they actually have to do the work. And so you're stuck into this situation where, these doctors are just trying to work it out. They're playing many roles. They're doctor plus coach plus educator. They're trying to see what to do. They're just trying to learn the medicine, have a reproducible system of how to deliver this care. So that was what I would call the era of functional medicine 1.0, where, that was the only people. Now, this is 2.0. You have technologies like Silicon Valley, finding money to support the creation of tools that make it exponentially easier to be effective, to run a successful practice. You have, anything from online booking software to email to, easy to use patient portals, sort of like the next generation of technology. And so now it's infinitely easier for doctors potentially to start one of these practices. And I think that with that model of consumer behavior, there has been a massive peer pressure against this for a long time by doctors. But now, because we've seen the first generation of doctors do it and start to do it successfully, and there's examples of particularly younger doctors using technology, building successful practices, getting outside of the insurance system and still making something that's affordable for patients, I expect that the model, it'll work in the opposite direction now, where you'll start to see a lot of doctors realizing, wow, I can just break free of the system and have a life that I love and get into practicing a type of medicine that's like really fulfilling for them and is engaging for patients and for them. Like that's the opportunity that is available now. There's never been available for doctors. And, you know, what we're doing in our business right now is just sort of like opening up that Pandora's box for as many doctors as possible and making it, just giving them easy steps to actually go through that process.
You mentioned insurance. That was one thing I was thinking about. I would imagine that's a pretty steep obstacle for especially doctors coming from a conventional practice where they're seeing 80, 90 patients a day, getting $22 a pop from Medicaid or Medicare. You know, how difficult of a transition is that for a doctor like that wants to go into more functional medicine?
Well, look, there's an amazing convergence happening in the world right now where this is being pushed to the forefront. Like, I don't know if I spoke about this the other day on Facebook, but, you know, at this very moment, everyone in America is getting letters to their house about how much their insurance premiums are going to go up come next year, right? And open enrollment starts on the 1st of November. And guess what? Most people's plans, the premiums are definitely going up, but the deductibles are going up even higher. So what used to look like a Cadillac plan now looks like a high deductible plan because the deductible is so high. So in that moment, what you actually realize is that if everyone has these high deductibles and they're growing, that first $10,000 is, you know, if that's the deductible, that's basically cash. And so now you're in this situation where everyone's vying for cash in a similar way, and that puts us in a great position. And actually, that's why I think it's going to, you know, play to our favor. But insurance is a crazy, you know, is a crazy game. I think consumers know how to search out value. They're doing it all the time. And I think that when you put side by side, you know, this practice versus another practice, or just going to see a cardiologist for 10 minutes and end up with bills coming out of your ears for the next, you know, 3 months because they found another way to charge you for some other part of the visit or whatever. People are sick of that. Yeah. And so the new model is akin to what I would say is like, you know, like a farmer's market. So like, you know, in food, you just have you have so many layers between you and the farmer, right? You have Walmart, and then behind that, there's all these, you know, all the way. And so 20 years ago, people were just like, no, I want to look the farmer in the eye, get my food directly. And, you know, it's the same kind of thing in medicine where it's like, let's get all the middlemen out of the way and let's just have a relationship with someone that I know, like, and trust in my community. And that's what we're trying to empower.
Yeah, I like that. That makes sense. You studied economics as it relates to healthcare, right? What was it that made you want to study that and get into that area? You know,
that was part of my rebellious phase when I was, you know, I thought that it was important to, you know, I guess, you know, health economics is very interesting. You know, the health economics is very interesting, particularly in America, because, you know, we have 18.8% of GDP being spent on healthcare, which is basically triple any other nation. The health outcomes are terrible and getting worse. And so there's this, you know, depending on, you see that as either a tragedy or a real opportunity. I was the weird kid at school that like had a homeopath and a chiropractor. So this was like in me from the beginning. And I guess when I moved here 11 years ago, I guess I had a little bit of an inkling that something to do with what I had been born into, which was, you know, being the patient of holistic medicine, could go some way to solve that problem. And so, you know, it's been 11 years. For a long time, made very like steady progress. I was like a sales rep. I worked in a clinic. But all the time focusing on serving these doctors and understanding what it was like to be a doctor doing functional medicine. And then started speaking at conferences. And then, you know, 3 years ago, we started the show, and it's sort of accelerated from there.
Did someone in your family functional or holistic medicine geared? How did you end up in that type of care growing up?
Just the way my parents, you know, my parents were part of a spiritual organization. They, you know, I was born in Colorado randomly, even that you can probably tell from my accent. So I grew up in England. They were just, you know, that was just, you know, part of the group's ethos was, you know, they ate well, and they, used the least invasive modalities first. Thinking back on it, my mom, I was the only kid in school that if the nurse decided antibiotics were needed, they had to call my mom before they just randomly gave me antibiotics. Now, my mom has no medical training, no degree of any sort, and yet she was 30 years ahead of microbiome science. Like, how does that even happen? And it's basically because if you think about it sensibly, even at that point, they were like, look, this is, antibiotics are doing a very specific job, but overused. That, we know all this now, and now it's all come to light, and everyone knows about the microbiome, and everyone knows about, resistance and creating superbugs, all that kind of thing. But I think intuitively, if you think in a systems thinking way, you understand that, like, there's got to be some negative side effects for, just killing, trillions of bacteria, killing everything.
Yeah. I want to connect some dots here, because you said you were born in Colorado, but you grew up in England.
Yeah, England, South Africa. My dad lives in Cape Town, South Africa, and I grew up sort of halfway between England and South Africa, but I was born in Colorado, yeah. So I got the American passport, which is a nice touch.
That's nice. So your dad's from South Africa? Was your mom from the States?
No, neither from the States. I was basically like an anchor baby, but they never moved here. So it was just like, it's like an anchor baby, except they didn't extract any value from the taxpayer system. They never moved here. So my dad lives in South Africa. My mum was born in South Africa and lives in England. Okay. So it's half and half, but it's the same. It's not like, it's kind of like American, right? It's fourth generation South African, but they're actually English, like fourth generation American. Right.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And so growing up in England, you said there was like you grew up in sort of a spiritual community. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, just my parents sort of left normal life in 1968 to pursue that, a spiritual path, and they were part of this organization that, I grew up in, and, I went to like normal school and whatever, but, instead of church on Sundays, we had a different kind of church. And, a lot of what I guess it was, based on was what would now be somewhere in the zone of like self-help understanding. But yeah, it was very like about, doing the right thing and being empowered. And it was, I think it was before its time. And, the reason why I sort of went, I was an investment banker, which is strange to hear, but it's just basically because, I had sort of a rebellious phase. That organization ended. My parents, when I was like 13, they got divorced, and I just thought, that I'm not even sure what that was. And so, I just went through normal school, and then thing I can do. Yeah. Exactly. And then about 6 months in, I just realized I was playing for the wrong team and need to get the hell out of there.
Oh, so that's good. You figured it out only 6 months in. That's good.
Yeah.
Before it really affected you.
I had to leave before I got my first bonus, because that's how they keep you in for the long term.
How they get you. Mm-hmm. Sure. I guess it's hard to leave given a big bonus. That's interesting. And so that was all. You're an investment banker. Is that still in England, or had you moved back
in England? Yeah, no, in England. And then I had my moment. I just realized I need to, work in a field that I felt passionately about. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I didn't want to have a job. And my cousin was involved in integrative medicine. He had been in the spa industry, and he bought a supplement company that only sold to doctors, and he basically convinced me to come and work for him. And so I worked in a clinic for a year and a half. I had that in Georgia. Now I live in rural Georgia, from London to rural Georgia. Okay. So I'm an hour outside of Atlanta. I'm in the sticks. And, I'm working in a clinic that was really the greatest joy of that clinic. Was it's the best run clinic I've ever seen. And part of the reason why they got it so right is because they'd been in the spa industry. And so the spa industry, like 10 years before functional medicine, sort of worked out how to run a business with cash. And, it's the same kind of thing. You have someone going in for an appointment for an hour. So they had developed these systems on how to run a successful spa. And so this was like a spa clinic, hybrid. And working in that place was really valuable because I really learned how to run a business. And then I became I was the third rep for the supplement company. So now I'm selling to these doctors. And because I knew how to run the practice, basically I would go to the doctors and say, hey, look, you guys don't know how to run the practice. I know, I can see this is a mess. Yeah. I'll help you, but you have to buy my products. And that was the beginning. And I just, I put 100,000 miles on my car. I met thousands of practitioners from specialists in hospitals who had no idea why I was there or reason or no understanding of anything I was talking about, through to like, Reiki practitioners in the basement of their house and everything in between. And that was like, just going. And, that was the 10,000 hours, honestly. Talk about Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 10,000 hours of mastery. It was like, it was listening to doctors and finding out what the hell was going on and, really getting a rich understanding of the problems that they faced and actually learning to deliver this type of medicine. And that's sort of what, by the time the Functional Forum came around and I was on stage doing my own show, I think it's clear to everyone that I know a lot about their industry, even though I'm not a doctor. And, I curate the clinical talent anyway. I don't tell them what to do clinically. We put up the best speakers who we, who tell them what to do. And then, what I've been helping them to do is realize a new opportunity to build, to build a practice and actually deliver this in a way that is really, is also affordable for patients.
Yeah, the forums are great.
Like putting those,
they're really, really good. If we have any professionals listening to this, whether you're a doctor or an FDN practitioner or a chiropractor or any type of nutrition wellness doc, you don't have to be an MD, I guess is what I'm getting at. It's awesome information for anyone that works in the field whatsoever. And it's like getting the best minds on a subject together, throwing them on a couple couches or chairs, and they have a conversation. And it's you do a hell of a job with it. So I just wanted to interject with that.
Thanks, dude. And look, all the practitioners that you mentioned are going to be working together in these health centers of the future, because that's part of what's happening now is that doctors don't need, in the first era, doctors just opened their shingle and they had to do all these things. Now the best models that we see are like doctor plus health coach. The doctor untangles the problem and then the health coach is the one who's actually like helping the patient to, work out how to implement it in their lives. And so that's part of it is that this new system requires a team, and we're just looking out from our perspective, seeing what things are really working, and then sharing that to the community at large.
Right. That makes sense. It sounds like you talk about putting hundreds of thousands of miles on your car and meeting thousands of doctors. It sounds like you were having a blast doing that.
It was fun. It was crazy. Like 11 years into being an entrepreneur, I can remember, there was some amazing stories. Like my wife and I, when we first started, we did a 5-month road trip. She wasn't my wife then, and she became my wife after, but we did a 5-month road trip. And I was making about $1,500 a month at this point. I was on commission. My rent in Georgia was $300 a month. Imagine.
Wow. Right? You can't get a parking space for that around.
No, exactly. So, so we start on this road trip and I'm like, yeah, we're going to go and visit these doctors. How are we going to keep the costs low? So I was like, yeah, we'll just go camping. So we start our trip. I'm in like rural Virginia, about to start my first day. And we wake up and it's pissing it down with rain. And I've got to get myself into a suit to go and like visit these doctors. And I certainly realized like the camping was not going to be our plan. And then we started staying in very low end motels for a long time. And we almost ran out of money on that first trip. And I won like $600 playing roulette in Seneca Falls. At like a very key moment to keep the whole show on the road. And that was, that was 8 years ago now. And look, the life of an entrepreneur, like I really care about this happening. And so, it's been, all the chips have been in all the way along. And it's exciting to see, just how much momentum the whole thing has now.
Yeah, willing to sacrifice everything to see this vision kind of come.
And if you made it through a 5-month road trip with her before you were married and she still married you, kudos to that.
That's it, dude.
Exactly.
Road trips are intense, man. I've gone on a few longer road trips with friends that I thought were like, this is going to be awesome. And within 4 days, it's like, get the out of my car. I hate you. Every little thing that they do that might piss you off becomes amplified under a magnifying glass. And you get put in like pain in the ass situations that tend to not bring the best out of people. So
yeah, no, dude, I've still been married 8 years, so going strong so far.
Way to go! And I met James's wife. We were out in San Diego and we had dinner, and your little girl who pounds down, was that muscles? that she loves?
She loves muscles. She's got the tiny little hands. She can get right in there.
Yeah, these girls like bowing down. It was crazy. Michael, my son, liked muscles when he was a kid, but not till he was like 12, 13. James has a baby at the table just plowing down a giant pile of muscles. It was unlike anything I've seen. But,
how old are you?
She's 3.5 now. She just started like baby school a couple of weeks ago.
Yep. It's a weird thing, isn't it? We have a 4.5-year-old, so he started last year. It's a weird thing.
Yeah.
I remember dropping him off, expecting what I think a lot of people expect is that he would start crying and screaming, and we'd have to kind of force him to go in. We were like, all right, we're here, and he was like, all right, see you later. Walked in, and me and my wife cried.
Yeah, no, I totally lost it the first day that I took her, and that's I think there's something internally that, like, if your kid is screaming, "Daddy, Daddy, don't leave me" at the highest voice, like there's something inside of us that just feels like we can't leave her, and so to draw myself away was interesting. But now, she loves it. Now, like a couple days ago, my wife just got back from a long trip and went to pick her up, and instead of picking her up at like 5, picked her up at 4, and she was like, "Mom, you're too early. Come back like later." She was having a great time. It quickly changes. Yeah.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. So, you after your road trip, you realized this was something that was needed, something you were obviously passionate about, and you did the first functional forum in New York City. Yeah,
so we had to meet up. So that's fast forward a long time. So that road trip was in 2007. Now the first episode of the functional forum wasn't until 2014. And so in the middle of time,
you studied the economics for healthcare in between then?
No. So health, I went to university in England. I went to schooling. We got my job in England. That was that. I left to Georgia in 2005. 2007, started being a sales rep. I was a sales rep through 2012, 13, 14. I was like a manager now. And then, but I started some businesses on the side. So I started a practice development business where we'd help doctors run a successful practice. I started a website business with my wife where we'd make websites for health professionals. And we learned a lot through that process, but neither of them really scaled. And, what we realized, I have a vision of what we're trying to create. And that was in 2011 when I really clicked exactly what I was going to do. And then the first thing we realized is we need to build the attention and trust of the functional medicine community. So we started with the forum, make it easier for doctors to find out about functional medicine. And the next step of the journey right now is making it easier for doctors to run a practice. And I would maybe this is an interesting analogy for your crews. I kind of feel like what we're doing is CrossFit for functional medicine. So if you think about CrossFit, like how does CrossFit grow to be, the biggest brand in training so quickly? They have a reproducible system for creating fitness, and then they have a really low overhead model for turning trainers into business owners, right? And so and make it easy for them to have a business and then for them to get paid in a recurring revenue model. And they teach them the whole system. So, in functional medicine, if you're going to create a health center of the future, you need a reproducible operating system for creating health. And that's functional medicine. And that's where I feel functional medicine differs from integrated medicine, naturopathic medicine, holistic medicine, is that there is a system that you could train doctors to do repeatedly with every patient that helps them, deliver the care and prioritize it in the best way. And then, the low overhead model. So in the first era of functional medicine, there are a lot of people that tried to start a wellness center or have a big center because that's how they were used to seeing medicine delivered in a big building. And the truth is, right now, the coolest practices that we see have a much lower overhead. They can run a practice off a laptop, and they can practice even in a non-traditional medical environment, like a co-working space or inside an office building or at a strip mall or something where the overhead is much lower, or in a physical therapy practice or something like that. And so we just saw all the way along that the big thing that was blockaging doctors from coming across was they couldn't really work out how to build a practice and didn't think they had the capital and resources or whatever to do it. And we're essentially showing them they can do it for pretty much nothing. And we're hoping that, in the same way that like CrossFit grew so quickly, because now all these people are out there hanging their shingle, marketing the idea of CrossFit and all those kind of things, we could do the same kind of thing with functional medicine and make it just exponentially easier for a doctor to start a new practice and become an entrepreneur.
I don't know, man. I think this all makes too much sense. I think you need to complicate it in some way so it fits into the medical model. Maybe if you made it complicated as hell, more doctors would understand it right away.
No,
Exactly.
dude, it's yeah, I agree. I mean, they're used to having things convoluted, but you take that.
Working with Sachin?
With who?
Sachin?
Yeah, Sachin. Dude, Sachin is in my book multiple times because he's one of the smartest guys. Like the way that he runs his practice is awesome. He's doing a lot of the things that we're telling doctors to do, like build an autoresponder, to do your patient education through a different means than just me talking to you on your time. And then, dude, let me tell you one thing that Sachin's doing that is incredible. Because I don't know if he's been on the podcast, but
a lot. He's one of our most frequent guests for interviews.
So Sachin has this deal where, like, he heard all of his patients saying, "Hey, it's too time-consuming for me to like cook all these healthy meals you're recommending. I don't have time to cook. I'm busy." So he gets 20 of them together in a commercial kitchen. They have to pay ahead of time for the ingredients and the Tupperware. They have 20 stoves. Everyone makes a meal for 20 people, and everyone gets the recipe and makes the meal for 20 people. And then you basically just divvy it up between those 20 people into Tupperware, and then everyone's having a glass of wine. It happens in 90 minutes. So in 90 minutes, you make a week's worth of food. 20 meals is like 3 meals a day for a week, right? Wow. And then you make it all in 90 minutes. You take it away in your Tupperware, and it's all done. And you've now got this awesome new community of friends. He's just
where does he come up with all these ideas?
He's incredible, and his social media is out of control. Like he's got this program where he's helping doctors to reproduce his model. I think the hardest thing that will be reproducible is, like, he is a wordsmith. And he's really amazing on that. So I don't know how reproducible that is, but everything else in his clinic is really reproducible. And so that's the kind of thing. We'd just be looking out at the different, things that are going on in the industry. I went up to his clinic, and look, he's in a co-working space, low overhead. You don't need that much space to deliver this. It's where people actually are. They don't have to travel to some random place like the hospital to go and get care. You can have one appointment in a place where they are, like a co-working space. Telemedicine is now a thing and is easy to have a conversation with your doctor like we're having here. So, when I said earlier, there's this grand convergence of things happening in society, the wearable trackers. Everyone's got the wearable tracker now, and people have a number on their watch and they want to improve it, and the doctor doesn't know how to improve it because they're not taught about health creation. They're taught about symptom eradication. And so now, so there's that big push towards functional medicine from that end. You've got, ridiculous healthcare costs pushing just someone to find an answer for that. And all of these things are coming together at the right time. And Sachin's a perfect model of what to do. Yeah. And it's, he's mentioned a few times in the book. And in the book is really just a combination of the best stories of people who are doing the best stuff. And hopefully, more than anything, is going to convince regular doctors that this is a path for them. Because we have two big problems in America right now with medicine. One is the cost of care, chronic disease care, basically, is the cost. And the second is just the rampant, just doctors losing faith in the medical system, very unhappy with their jobs, committing suicide at the highest levels. So it's a worrying time to be a doctor, and they get frustrated with the system. I think we can solve both of those problems with one elegant solution.
Absolutely. And it's a scary, like, we talked about before, it's a scary thing to make that transition, but you're making that transition much easier for folks and doable.
It's awesome.
Fantastic.
You called him a wordsmith. We call him the meme machine.
The meme machine.
He's far beyond his practice.
Did you guys meet in Boulder at Isabella's thing last year? Is that where you met, or did you already know each other?
I met him before. I went to, last May, in Toronto. I went to Toronto and met him there.
Okay.
There's people there, yeah. No, he's a good dude.
Cool. Yeah, our audience is very familiar with him. So you want to hear some insider stories about Sachin's practice, you should check out James's book.
Yeah. I thought, actually, I've got the book right here, and it's very, the front cover is very Rebel Health Tribe-y, you see?
It is.
One page there.
So I thought you'd like that.
Cool. Awesome. And I think you're filling a void in a sense that what we do and what people like us do, and a lot of people out there, there's a lot of us. There's a lot of people out there reaching out to the general public and educating them in a way to let them know that stuff like you're trying to build is out there. And we try to connect, because we don't work with clients one-on-one anymore. We try to connect, if someone comes to us and they need help, who to send them to. And we've run into the best people, because there's not a lot of them yet, having 4-month waiting lists or
being really expensive.
$7,000 to see them for 20 minutes or some ridiculous thing. Yeah. And the more of them that we can trust, that we know we can send people to, the easier it is to see them, the less it costs. You mentioned Sachin has low overhead. He automates some of the stuff that can be automated easily. And all of that makes it more affordable for the consumer, more accessible for the consumer, and a lot easier for us to send people to it.
Absolutely, dude. Well, look, you guys are doing an amazing job. So, one amazing stat that you guys will like is that the demand for functional medicine is way outstripping the supply. I mean, that's the long and the short of it, because consumers move faster than doctors, are less conservative and know what they want and know how to find value in a healthcare system. So this year, over 1 million people will visit the functional medicine website, the Institute for Functional Medicine. So there's like 1 million people, coming to the site looking for a doctor delivering this. And, what we're trying to do is just like really ramp up the supply and also just elongate the care of the doctors. If you can bring in a health coach, nutritionist, nurse practitioner, like other types of providers into the mix, you don't have to, everything isn't so dependent on the doctor. And I'm sure you've seen that for like 80% of chronic health issues, you can get 80% of the way with, probably with a health coach who's just going to help to, actually implement the things that you probably want to do anyway. Everyone knows they shouldn't be drinking 5 Cokes a day. They understand that in their head, but like they need someone to sort of help them through the process of delivering that. So, what we see is that the role that the doctor has to play is very small, actually, which is, can they unpick the complexity of what's going on and come up with a plan to take it to resolution? And then the actual work starts. So now the patient is participating and taking the action, and then can be supported by other types of providers along the way.
Yeah, along those lines, I wanted to ask you, when you did the first functional forum in New York, how big was that compared to what it was the last time you did it?
So when we first did it, we didn't stream it. We just videoed it. We didn't work out that streaming was the thing until like the third episode. The third episode we live streamed. So we videoed it. It was basically 70 doctors in a room. In order to make that happen, I made 250 phone calls. I had a 5-hour drive back from Virginia and, put on my sales rep hat and called every functional doctor in New York, New Jersey, or whatever. Got 70 there. Dr. Kelly Brogan, who I don't know if you guys know, Mind of Your Own, she spoke on the first functional forum and totally crushed it. So much so that her talk from the first functional forum is our #1 video on our YouTube channel still. Wow. And, she was just incredible. And that really just gave us a great boost for the first one. By the 4th episode, we had streamed it. I had Mark Hyman speak. Mark announced the Center for the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine on the 4th episode. And, at this point, the highest watched episode has had like 25,000 watches, I think. That was one we did on the microbiome last year. But we typically get right now about 5,000 watched in the first week and 10,000 watched in the first month. And it's growing a lot. And I would say with what we're about to do, we're going to see it grow, grow even more. And the coolest thing is the community. So we've got 200 meetups of doctors around the world. So my dad goes to a meetup in Cape Town, South Africa. My mum goes to a meetup in Malvern, England. Every major city in America has one. And if you could probably read between the lines and see like the goal here is to create kind of like an Uber for functional medicine, like a really easy, intuitive platform for everyone to have this type of care and actually disrupt the marketplace by providing something awesome that people actually want. Because no one under 40 cares about Blue Cross Blue Shield or Oxford or Aetna. They hate all that stuff. And so, just providing something that is really valuable. So in order to pull off that master plan, you need a lot more functional doctors. So that's where we're starting. And, over time, we'll start to just really make it easy for consumers to find these doctors, rate these doctors, give feedback on these doctors so everyone can see who's good and who's not. And, we can have remedial training for those who aren't good.
You're going certain doctors going to specialize in certain things. I know it's not necessarily the format of functional medicine, but as you move forward, do you see certain functional medicine doctors maybe specializing in certain things?
I mean, they tend to now. That's certainly something, is that they tend to attract certain types of diseases. They get good at it. They get referrals from it. The role of the functional medicine doctor is really more like a super generalist. So if you think of, specialists, this is like where, you need a generalist, because chronic disease, unlike acute disease, is not organ specific, right? If you have type 2 diabetes, it could be affecting, the pancreas, but also your foot and all these other organs. Or if you have, chronic pain, it could be happening on, many different areas. So you need someone who can understand the interaction of the different systems. Does the endocrine system and the gut system talk to each other? Yes. So is an endocrinologist the right person, or a gastroenterologist? And the answer is neither, because they don't know how the two interact. So that's the beauty of the super generalist. And so I'd say that would be most clinics will be able to deal with a lot of different things. But I would say, I think there'll still be specialization in particular areas. But most people, even if you go to those doctors who specialize, they'll see other cases as well.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about the book a little bit, of course. The book is called Evolution of Medicine also. What was the catalyst for you writing the book?
It's just an efficient way. Yeah, it's just an efficient way to deliver the ideas. I wanted to create something that I could give to a regular doctor and help them see the opportunity to build this kind of practice. And, there's really nothing out there like this. Everyone writes books, but they write for the general public, because that's where you can get a New York Times bestseller, which doesn't appeal to me. What I want to do is get the ideas out. So for the last 2.5 years, we've been in this really privileged position to see these amazing stories, these heroic doctors, going and working out how to do this, basically, and just, being entrepreneurs, working it out. Now we get to see what they're doing and essentially put it together in it's a hero's journey, essentially. The first part of the hero's journey is a call to adventure for the physician or the practitioner to practice a type of medicine that's relevant for today's diseases. So that's the first part, is like that call to adventure. Chronic disease, this doesn't work, insurance billing, all of this is like a nightmare, and, that there's a solution on the other side of it, and calling them towards it. And then the second part of the hero's journey, and this is why it's really good for anyone who's in the space, who's already a functional doctor or another practitioner, is like, okay, the last and hardest test of the hero's journey is working out how to run the practice, how to be an entrepreneur, because you didn't go through that in school. Right. And so in the second half of the book, we talk about the best practices that we've seen to create efficiency, to do marketing, to do patient education, but all mainly centered around efficiency, because the care is really amazing in functional medicine, but it's so inefficient that we can't make it affordable for the masses. Like, any medical system that starts with you having an 1.5 hour intake with someone, you can see how that doesn't really scale up that quickly. But there are ways that doctors are working out how to scale it up, using technology, using provider teams, using group structures. And so we detail all of that in the book as to, that. So if you read the book, if you're a physician, this is like a handbook to take you on that journey. And if you can implement everything from just reading it, like if you can read about an autoresponder to automate your patient education, and you can go on and do it, then you can do it. And then we have other support through our company to make it easier and easy for those doctors to make the switch. So the book is just an efficient way of delivering the ideas. We self-published it, so I will send a free book to anyone who wants one, any doctor who wants one, because it's a easy way for us to put our ideas in the hands of the people that need it.
Excellent. And then you're going to be offering that book, and we have a link that people could find it that we set up here. It's called evorebels.com. And so what are people going to find when they head over to that offer?
Well, they can download the book for free for this week. You can get it on Amazon, but this week it's free. And I would just say, my goal is to get this into as many hands as possible. So if you're any sort of health professional listening to this, get the book, read it, and join one of the meetup groups, whatever. Like, we want to build a community of practitioners, is really important to us. If you're a patient listening to this and you just feel like you've been frustrated in the past that your doctor doesn't get it, or that or that you wish your doctor got it, or you've had bad experiences with a doctor, or maybe that you just love your doctor and you want him to understand what you understand about health creation, give them the book.
Nice.
Send it to them, download it, forward it. Like the goal isn't really to sell the books. The goal is to get these ideas to as many doctors as possible. And so if you have a bunch of like healthy rebels here who want to, help more doctors to see the light, they can play a role in connecting, connecting their doctors with the content.
Absolutely. So even if you're not a practitioner, it's probably, there's some benefit to grabbing the book and passing it along to a practitioner that you know.
Yeah, 100%.
Share the link, share the book, get the word out. And I know we're going to have a lot of practitioners that watch this too. And I can say that, like, check out their functional forums. Just check out their page, check out all the recordings. I've seen Kelly's, the first one. I didn't know that was the first one, but I know I've seen it, and she crushes everything. So, then the names, if you guys don't know some of the names he was mentioning about Mark Hyman announcing, the functional medicine clinic or the functional medicine branch of the Cleveland Clinic, or however that's worded, that was a big deal. Like that's a big deal that the Cleveland Clinic, that he's creating a functional medicine situation there. These are the people that are shaping this new functional medicine movement, and James has them all on the forum. And it's great to see a lot of people in that world collaborating instead of competing. And I think, that until every person in America has a functional medicine doctor, which we're about 99% short of, there's no need for people to be competing with each other in this world. It's how do we get the word out about what we're doing? And so cheers, man. Thank you for, everything that you're doing to get the word out, to change the system, because there's millions of people, and we have thousands of them that come to us that need the help of the people that you're going to be training to help them.
Thank you, dude. Yeah, look, it's definitely a team effort. It's all about building community. You're totally right on the competition versus collaboration. And that's it's funny that those kind of ideals are actually in the medicine too. Once you understand the microbiome, you understand, like, it's not them versus us. We need them and they need us. And, it's cool that there are lessons that you learn from, understanding the body that then are applied to the community in general. And it's been a really fun journey to see these communities popping up. And I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with the book launch. And we've got some pretty, big hitters coming onto our team to get the word out to doctors. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Great. Awesome. And if you're listening to this on iTunes or on our website or wherever, there'll be a link to get more information about about the book underneath the episode here.
Evo Rebels, EVORebels.com, and you can get the free book offer and the download and everything. So awesome.
James, thank you so much for everything you do. Thanks for being here and sharing.
Yeah, man, you're the busiest guy I know. So we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, and we'll keep posted on everything you're doing, and maybe in the future we could have you back and talk again.
That'd be great. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, James.